Time stopped meaning anything. There was only thirst and fear and the constant crack of rifle fire. You'd drift in and out, not quite sleeping, not quite conscious. The line between being awake and dreaming blurred until you couldn't tell anymore. I remember staring at my rifle and not remembering how many rounds I had left. 3, 5. I'd count them, then count again, and get different numbers. My hands shook too much to hold the gun steady anyway. The Germans tried everything. They sent patrols to probe our lines. They shelled us. They tried to burn us out with flamethrowers. You'd see that orange glow through the trees and smell the gasoline, and the boys near the perimeter would start firing at anything that moved. One night, they tried to talk us into surrendering again. A German officer, speaking perfect English, calling out from the darkness, "You have fought bravely, Americans. No one can question your courage. But you are finished. Your country has abandoned you. Surrender now, and you will be treated with honor." Someone, I think it was Sergeant Gaydick, yelled back, "Go to hell, Fritz." The Germans laughed. Then they started shelling us again. The psychological warfare was almost worse than the physical. They'd go quiet for hours, let us think maybe it was over. Maybe relief had come. Then they'd open up again, and you'd realize nothing had changed. Still trapped. Still dying. We ate bark, chewed on leather. Some boys tried eating grass, though it just made them sick. I caught myself staring at Jake Rosen's body on the third day, thinking thoughts I don't want to remember. That's what starvation does. Takes away everything that makes you human. The wounded died slowly. We'd marked some of them as expectant, a nice word for going to die and there's nothing we can do. We put them in one section of the perimeter and tried not to listen to them. Some called for their mothers, some prayed, some just moaned, hour after hour, until they didn't anymore. Private Hollingshead went mad on the 5th day, started screaming that we were all dead, that we were in hell, that God had abandoned us. It took 3 men to hold him down. He died that night. I don't know if it was his wounds or if he just gave up. Maybe there's no difference. At night, you could hear the German soldiers talking, laughing, cooking food. The smell of their coffee drifted through the trees. They were that close. They had supplies, reinforcements, everything they needed. We had nothing. But we held on. I don't know why. Stubbornness, maybe. Or fear of what would happen if we surrendered. Or just because Whittlesey was still there, still standing. And if that thin lawyer from New York wasn't giving up, how could we? Morning of October 7th came gray and cold like all the others. That's when we heard it. American voices, our boys, coming through the woods. We'd made it. Somehow we'd made it. The relief force from the 307th Infantry broke through around midday on October 7th. 5 days. 5 days in that pocket. And suddenly there were fresh troops, medics with actual supplies, officers yelling orders, organization. We were saved. I should have felt relief, joy, something. I felt nothing. We walked out of those woods like ghosts, 194 of us. That's all that was left who could walk, out of 554 who went in. The rest were dead, wounded, or so far gone they had to be carried. I remember passing Private Korotoshka's body at the stream. Someone had retrieved the canteens. His face was frozen in this expression. Not fear, not pain, determination. He died doing what he set out to do. They led us back to the rear areas, gave us food we couldn't eat. Our stomachs had shrunk too much. Water we gulped until we vomited. Clean clothes that felt wrong on our bodies. We'd lived in filth for so long that being clean felt like wearing someone else's skin. The reporters came almost immediately. They wanted the story, the heroic lost battalion, the brave boys who held against impossible odds. They wanted quotes about courage and patriotism and the American spirit. I couldn't talk, literally couldn't form words. My throat had closed up, and when I tried to speak, nothing came out but this strangled sound. They interviewed Whittlesey instead. He stood there, gaunt and exhausted, and told them what happened in this flat, dead voice. The reporters ate it up. The hero major, the lawyer who became a warrior. Later, I saw him sitting alone, staring at nothing. He'd brought 554 men into those woods. He'd brought 194 out. You could see him doing the math. 360 dead or wounded because he followed orders, because he refused to surrender. That calculation was written on his face. They gave us medals, the Distinguished Service Cross for some, the Croix de Guerre from the French, silver stars. They pinned them on our chests and took our pictures and told us we were heroes. Heroes. I'd watched Tommy Chen bleed out. I'd drawn straws for water while boys died of thirst 30 feet away. I'd thought about eating Jake Rosen's corpse. I'd listened to men beg to be shot, and sometimes I'd wished I was one of them. That's not heroism. That's survival. And survival isn't clean or noble or brave. It's ugly and desperate, and it strips away everything you thought you were until all that's left is the animal part of you that refuses to die. We weren't the lost battalion. We were the broken battalion. And the pieces of who we'd been before we walked into those woods were still lying there, rotting in the Argonne forest with all the boys who didn't make it out. The war ended 5 weeks later, November 11th, 1918. Armistice. We'd won. I was in a hospital in Paris when I heard. The whole city erupted, church bells, people dancing in the streets, soldiers celebrating, victory, peace. The war to end all wars was finally over. I turned my face to the wall and didn't come out for 2 days. They sent us home in January 1919. Heroes welcome in New York. Parade up Fifth Avenue. Confetti falling like snow. Crowds cheering. My mother crying, holding me so tight I couldn't breathe. My father shaking my hand over and over, telling me how proud he was. I smiled. I waved. I played the part. Inside, I was still in those woods, still surrounded, still counting bullets and rationing water, and listening to boys die in the darkness. I tried going back to the printing shop, lasted 3 days. The enclosed space, the chemical smell of the ink, the noise of the presses, it all crashed down on me. I had a panic attack on the shop floor, curled up behind a printing press while my uncle tried to calm me down. I couldn't explain it to him, couldn't explain to anyone. The nightmares came every night. I'd be back in the foxhole, watching American shells fall on our position. Or I'd be at the stream with Koratushka, watching him get torn apart while trying to fill canteens. Or Tommy Chen would be there asking me why they were shooting at us, and I'd try to answer, but no words would come out. I started drinking. Prohibition came in 1920, but you could always find something if you knew where to look. The alcohol helped for a while, numbed things, made the memories fuzzy. But you can't drink away what I saw. Trust me, I tried. Major Whittlesey became famous, the hero of the lost battalion. They wrote articles about him, gave speeches about his courage. He went back to his law practice in New York, tried to return to normal life. November 26th, 1921. 3 years after the war ended. Whittlesey boarded a ship bound for Havana. Somewhere in the middle of the ocean, he jumped. They never found his body. When I heard, I understood. Of course I understood. He'd been calculating that equation every day since we walked out of those woods. 360 men. The weight of that never gets lighter. It just crushes you slower. I think about the Argonne every day, not in a remembering way. It's more like I never left. Part of me is still there, still trapped in that pocket, still waiting for relief that came 5 days too late. People thank me for my service. They see the medals, and they think they know what that means. They think it means glory and honor and courage. They don't understand that medals are just metal. They don't fill the holes in your soul. They don't bring back the dead. They don't stop the nightmares. I'm 43 years old now. I've lived 25 years since the Argonne. But I'm not 43. I'm still 19, still in those woods, still surrounded, still dying slowly, even though my body kept breathing. They called us the Lost Battalion, past tense, like it's something that happened and ended. But we're still lost, all of us who made it out. We're still wandering through those dark woods, looking for a way back to who we used to be. We never found it. The boy I was before October 2nd, 1918, he's still lying in a foxhole in the Argonne forest, and I've been trying to dig him out for 25 years. I'm starting to think he's buried too deep. Some things you don't come back from. Some forests you never leave, even when you walk away. We weren't the Lost Battalion. We're the battalion that was never found. They called us the Lost Battalion, but we weren't lost. We knew exactly where we were, trapped, surrounded, dying. The Germans knew where we were, too. That was the problem. My name's Charles Keller. I was a private in the 308th Infantry Regiment, 77th Division. Most of us were New Yorkers, kids from Manhattan, Brooklyn, the Bronx. City boys who'd never seen a real forest until they shipped us to France. We called ourselves the Metropolitan Division, though the regular Army boys had other names for us. Weren't always polite. I'd been working in my uncle's printing shop on Canal Street before the draft notice came. 19 years old, never been in a fight in my life, never fired a gun. 6 months later, I'm in the Argonne forest with a Springfield rifle and 60 rounds, following Major Whittlesey deeper into the woods than any sane man should go. They told us the Argonne offensive would break the German lines. One big push, and we'd have them on the run. 3 days, they said, maybe a week at most. Then it'd be over, and we could all go home. We advanced on October 2nd, 1918. 554 men, 9 companies. Our orders were simple. Push forward, take the objectives, hold position until reinforcements arrived. The units on our flanks were supposed to keep pace with us. They didn't. We kept going anyway because those were our orders. Major Whittlesey was a lawyer from New York, tall and thin with wire-rimmed glasses. Didn't look like a soldier, but he followed orders like they were scripture. So we followed him. Through the ravines, up the slopes, deeper into those dark woods. The trees in the Argonne weren't like trees back home. They were old, twisted things that blocked out most of the sunlight. The undergrowth was so thick you couldn't see 10 feet in any direction. Everything smelled like decay and wet earth and something older, something that had been rotting in those woods for centuries. We didn't know it yet, but we were walking into a pocket, a German pocket. And once we got deep enough, they closed it behind us like a fist. That was October 2nd. We wouldn't get out until October 7th. 5 days doesn't sound like much. 5 days in hell is an eternity. The first day felt like progress. We advanced maybe 2 miles, took our objective on a hillside overlooking a ravine, dug in, sent runners back with our position, waited for the relief columns that were supposed to be right behind us. They never came. By nightfall on October 2nd, we started taking fire from 3 sides. Not just rifle fire, machine guns. The Germans had us bracketed. They'd let us walk right into their trap, and now they were closing it. The second day is when we realized how bad it was. Dawn broke cold and gray, and with the light came the artillery. German 77s, firing from positions we couldn't see, couldn't reach. The shells came screaming through the trees, air-burst rounds that sent shrapnel ripping through the branches above us. Jake Rosen was standing next to me when the first barrage hit. Kid from the Lower East Side always talked about his mother's cooking. A shell burst directly overhead, and something took the top of his head off. He dropped without a sound, and I was still holding the cigarette he'd just given me. We dug deeper. The hillside was mostly rock and roots, but we dug with helmets, with bayonets, with our bare hands. Anything to get below ground level. The German machine gun positions had perfect fields of fire. Anyone who stood up lasted maybe 3 seconds. Captain McMurtry, Whittlesey's second, crawled from hole to hole, keeping us organized. Hold your fire unless you have a target, he kept saying. Conserve ammunition. Relief is coming. We believed him because we had to. The runners we sent back didn't return. We'd send 2 men crawling through the ravine, and we'd hear shots in the distance, and that would be that. We were maybe a quarter mile behind our own lines, so close we could almost see them. But we might as well have been on the moon. By the 3rd day, October 4th, we were completely cut off. No food except what we had in our packs. No water except what we could collect from a small, muddy stream at the bottom of the ravine. And that stream was covered by German machine guns, so getting water meant risking your life for a canteen full of brown sludge that tasted like dead leaves and worse. The wounded started piling up. We had 2 medics for 500 men. Lieutenant Leake did what he could, but what can you do with no supplies? We tore up shirts for bandages, used belts for tourniquets, held boys down while they screamed and begged and died. The Germans called out to us in English, "Americans, surrender, you are surrounded. Why die for nothing?" Some of the men wanted to. You could see it in their eyes. But Whittlesey wouldn't consider it, and somehow his certainty kept the rest of us going. On the morning of October 4th, our own artillery started shelling our position. That's when I understood that maybe we really were lost after all. Friendly fire. That's what they call it. There's nothing friendly about it. The first American shell hit around 9 in the morning. I saw the flash through the trees behind us, heard that familiar whistle getting louder, and then the world exploded. The shell landed maybe 30 yards from my position, right in the middle of a group of boys from Company H. We screamed. We waved anything we had, helmets, shirts, anything white. We were yelling, "We're Americans. Stop, we're Americans." But you can't reason with artillery. The shells kept coming. Whittlesey sent our last carrier pigeon. Cher Ami, they called her. A little gray bird in a wooden box. The message was simple. We are along the road parallel to 276.4. Our own artillery is dropping a barrage directly on us. For heaven's sake, stop it. Private Richards released the bird. A piece of shrapnel hit her almost immediately. She went down, got back up, and somehow kept flying. Blood trailing behind her in the air. The shelling stopped an hour later. By then we had another 30 wounded and 8 dead, killed by our own guns. I found Tommy Chen in a shell crater, both legs gone, asking me why they were shooting at us. Tommy was from Chinatown, one of the few Chinese boys in the regiment. Smart kid, always reading when he got the chance. He bled out while I held his hand and lied to him about help coming. The German attacks came in waves after that. They'd rush our position, we'd cut them down, they'd fall back and shell us some more. They had unlimited ammunition. We were counting bullets. Every shot had to count because every shot might be your last. We started using German rifles when we could. Strip them off the dead, take their ammunition. Some of the boys crawled out at night to search the bodies in no man's land between us and them. Dangerous work. Most nights you'd hear shots and someone wouldn't come back. The smell got worse. Bodies decomposing in the October heat. Our own waste in the foxholes because you couldn't leave to relieve yourself. The wounded turning septic. Everything rotting together in those woods. Water became the obsession. We were down to nothing. Boys were drinking from puddles, licking dew off leaves. Some tried drinking their own urine. The stream at the bottom of the ravine was still there, still muddy, still covered by German guns. On the 4th day, Private Koratoshka volunteered to go. Polish kid, built like a brick, never talked much. He took 6 canteens and crawled down to that stream in broad daylight. The Germans opened up on him immediately. He made it to the water, started filling canteens, and they shot him to pieces. But he kept filling those canteens even as he was dying. He got 4 full before they killed him. 4 canteens for 500 men. We drew straws for who got a sip. The wounded were the worst. We had boys with gut wounds, chest wounds, head wounds, lying in foxholes with no morphine, no real bandages, nothing. They'd cry for water we didn't have. They'd beg to be shot, to end it. Some of the men did it. Mercy killings. You'd hear a single shot in the night, and you'd know another boy had found peace the only way left. Lieutenant Leake, one of our medics, got hit on the 5th day. Took a bullet through the shoulder, but kept working. Kept crawling from hole to hole with one arm, doing what he could. There's your hero if you want one. Not me. Him. By October 6th, we'd been surrounded for 5 days. We had maybe 100 effective fighters left. No food, no water, almost no ammunition. And still, Whittlesey wouldn't surrender.